Hi, and welcome back to Continual. It is another episode of Hot Off the Press, the show about new releases and the authors that bring them to you. I'll be your host this evening, Jim Nettles. And before we get started, we're going to go around the room and let everybody introduce themselves. So we're going to start with you, Nina.
Oh, okay. Hi, I'm Nina Crespo. I write books that range from sizzling encounters to small town steamy romance. And so I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about my upcoming book, A Chef's Kiss.
John?
Hi, I'm John L. French, retired CSI from Baltimore City, and now a writer and an editor. And I'm happy to be here to talk about my new book, which involves something I used to do for a living.
Cericia?
Hey, I'm Cericia Glass. I write paranormal romance, urban fantasy, and right now I'm doing rom-coms. So I'm delighted to be here tonight to talk to you about my upcoming rom-com, The Love Con.
Colleen?
Hi, I'm Colleen Gleason, and I also write as Colleen Cambridge. I'm here tonight to talk about my two brand new releases, and because I write a bunch of different things, mystery, paranormal, some other stuff. So, and by the way, that's not a halo, even though you can't tell. Okay, there you go. It's just my light. So yeah, thanks for having us.
And Amy?
Hi, I'm Amy Ravenel, and I write urban fantasy with a healthy dose of romance in there. And my series focuses on a group of ghost hunters.
So Colleen is not feeling it this evening, so but she was kind enough to come in and join us anyway. So Colleen, why don't you tell us about the new release? What's the new fun stuff?
Oh, thank you so much. I actually want to talk about two books, and I'm going to make it brief, and then I'm going to make my exit so I'm not coughing and hacking through this. And I just want everybody to know it's not the big C. It's just a regular head cold, but I feel miserable. I feel like my head is in another county. It's just very weird. So anyway, very quickly, I won't take a lot of time. My book came out at the end of October, Murder at Malowin Hall. Writing is Colleen Cambridge. It is a murder mystery set in the home of Agatha Christie. The housekeeper comes down into the library one morning during a house party, and think Downton Abbey, that kind of a large house. It's a fictional home. It's not really Agatha Christie's house, but it's a fictional home. She comes down to the library to open the curtains and finds a man lying on the floor with a fountain pen stuck in his neck. Yes, there is a dead body in Agatha Christie's library. So that's the premise and the setup for this book. And Phillida Bright is the housekeeper, and she is the one who ends up solving the mystery during this house party at Agatha Christie's house. So it's kind of like an English country house murder. Agatha Christie meets Downton Abbey with kind of a real self-assured housekeeper who's the main character. So that's one book. And then my other release that I was told I could talk about is a paranormal women's fiction book called Tomes, Scones, and Crones. And it is about a woman who's a librarian. She's been a librarian for 25 years. And all of a sudden, one day, her life goes to hell. Every bad thing that could possibly happen happens. She loses her job. She loses her house. Her reputation is shot. And on the same day she finds out, she inherits this little bookshop in a small tourist town in Michigan. Excuse me. And turns out the bookshop is magic. There's magic related to this bookshop. So this is a book for people who love books. Anyway, she's 48 years old. Her whole life has changed. And now she's got to figure out what to do with this bookshop, where there are characters from books who actually work in the bookshop. So that's basically what I wanted to tell you about. If anybody has a quick question, I'm happy to answer it. And then I'm just going to buzz because I'm falling asleep.
Colleen, one quick question. In the Malowin book, is the expression mightier than the sword used at all?
Oh my God, that was a missed opportunity. Clearly, that was a missed opportunity. No, it never was used. I'm so sorry. I wish I had thought of it, but no.
I blame the editor.
I'm going to pass that on to my editor.
Well, Colleen, I appreciate you hopping in and joining. I hope you get to feeling better, but where can everybody find you so they can find both of these new releases as well as everything else?
ColleenGleason.com. I think it's backwards to all of you, but it's ColleenGleason.com.
No, it's right side up.
Is it right side for you guys? Because it's backwards
Yes.
for me. Okay. And I actually have my brand new website is being uploaded like as we speak. So by the time this gets out there, my brand new website will be up and it has all my books on it, including this book, which is written under a different, whoops, this one's written under a different name. So anyway, I apologize. Normally I love to sit and hang out and chat with everybody, but I just feel so miserable and I don't want to be hawking and everything. So good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night. Feel
Have
better.
another
Feel
toddy,
better.
and
Have
hope you
fun.
feel better. Let's kind of work our way around the room and talk about everybody's new releases. So, Nina, what about you? What have you got for us?
Well, I am excited about my upcoming release. It's called A Chef's Kiss. It's part of the Tilbridge Stables world. It's a standalone title, so you don't have to read the Tilbridge Stables series to get into this one, which is part of the Small Town Secret series. And so Philippa Gale is a chef who had a past relationship with Dominic Crawford, who is also a celebrity chef. They were rivals for a position at one time, and kind of accidentally fell in love in the process of going for this job. And so here we are years later, and they're having to work together again. And so the question is, as sparks are flying between them, is this a good thing, or are they setting themselves up for cooking up another heartbreak, basically? So, yeah.
I'm not going to ask who the sous chef is in that relationship. So, Ceresia, what have you got for us?
My upcoming book is so upcoming that I don't have my author copies yet. So I'll show you the cover on my phone, which you can't see because it's so bright. It's called The Love Con, and basically it is set around this fictional reality show. It's a cosplay competition on a reality show. So the heroine has made it to the final round, and the final round happens to be a couple's cosplay, and they go back home to make the costumes with their significant other, and that was the requirements. Unfortunately, she broke up with her significant other a few months back, and so put on the spot, she blurts out her best friend's name, Cameron Lassiter. So because he is her cosplay partner and they've gone to Dragon Con and other cons quite a lot. So basically, since she kind of put his name out there, she's got to convince him to be her fake boyfriend. And they have to kind of move into one bedroom together because the producers are going to also shoot them at home. So since she said that they were a couple, they've got to pretend to be a couple for the rest of the competition. And that'll be out in December 14th.
What about you, John? What have you got?
Okay. I also have a couple books coming out. The first one I'll talk about briefly is Frankenstein, Monsters of the Abyss. It is the first book in Patrick Thomas's Agents of the Abyss series, and together Pat and I have rewritten Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, putting in all the parts that she decided to leave out. Essentially, we get into the topic of what is a monster and who in the book are monsters. There's also a cat. The book I really want to talk about is Mortal Sins. It's a collection of stories about a former CSI, former private eye, who is now a forensic investigator for the Baltimore City State's Attorney's Office. It is a continuation of one of my first books, Past Sins, which ended with him joining the State's Attorney's Office. By the way, in Maryland, we don't have district attorneys, we have state's attorneys. It's a series of short stories, but each one takes things a little further. The situation in Baltimore at the time is one that is ripped from the headlines. We have had, in Baltimore, in this version of Baltimore, we have had police officers tried for an in-custody death, which led to civil disturbances. We have an officer who is actually jailed for a shooting. There are other incidents. The situation in Baltimore is that the police, because the public do not trust the police do not trust the state's attorney. The state's attorney is trying to put police officers in jail in furtherance of a possible mayoral campaign. The city is going to hell, and Matthew Grace is trying to figure out how to keep it from getting there. I like to say these stories are ripped from the headlines. And both of these books will be out in December.
Amy?
I'm sorry, I was listening to everybody else's and I just wasn't ready yet. Okay. While on an investigation, Tabitha falls into a portal and winds up in a world filled with monsters and nightmares. Her husband, Aaron, and the rest of her ghost hunting team fight to free her on the outside while she fights to save herself and her sisters on the inside. This is the third book in the Restless Spirit series, and the whole series follows a group of paranormal investigators as they fight ghosts and demons and other things that go bump in the night, and there's also kissing. The first two are currently out now, and Trap Spirit comes out on December 2nd.
Excellent. So, Ceresia.
Yes.
For those of who don't know, you love cosplay. We know you're big into cosplay. So, what inspired this particular story?
I wanted to finally geek out in a story, actually. So it's not autobiographical in any way because I cannot make a costume to save my life. I'm one of those ones that, tied the sheet around their neck and put the towel on their head and just kind of pretended that way. So I like to source my stuff. But I really do love to play dress up and love to play cosplay. I've gone to Dragon Con longer than I care to admit here. But since, I got out of high school, I've gone to the Georgia Renaissance Festival and loved dressing up there. I bought my first corset there, and my Tavern Witch outfit. So it's been a lot of fun. And I just wanted to kind of finally, write a story set around some of the stuff that I really love to do. So that's how this one came up. And but I wanted to make it, I had to have a better hook than just, being a cosplayer. So I was like, let's make it a reality show. And she's got to make costumes under hellacious deadlines. So that's kind of how that happened. Then it's like, well, I got to have her best friend help her. How does that happen? And so that's kind of how the whole story came up, just kind of interviewing myself, I guess, to try to figure out how the story would go. But yes, it's got, I make mention of some of my favorite shows. Gummy bears, gummy worms, because I like to chew on those, bite the heads off as stress reliever sometimes. So yeah, I just kind of had fun just throwing in all of the kind of stuff that I like. So I guess this is the most me book that I've ever written, which is still not totally me, but enough of me, I guess, would be in it that people could say, oh yeah, she wrote herself, but kind of, but not. So it's kind of the stuff that I like, but that's about it because I'm not an engineer by any means like Kenya is. So,
but you are available to be on reality TV. We can.
If they need somebody to go all purple, I am your girl.
What about you, John? So let's start with the rip from the headlines. What inspired this one?
Mainly past events. Baltimore, back in 2015, Baltimore had an incident in which there was a very controversial in custody death. 5 police officers were indicted and ultimately either acquitted or the charges were dropped. There was a police officer there was a police officer who died in the line of duty. That death is controversial because they're still not clear whether or not it was a homicide or a suicide. And then there was everything that was going on in 2020 during the Great Unpleasantness that had nothing to do with medical issues. And as a writer, I'm starting to say, how can I address this? There is in Baltimore great tension between the police department and the state's attorney's office. The state's attorney in my book is nothing like the state's attorney in real life. I make it clear they're two completely different people. but there again, there is that tension between the two departments. And from this, I could, I had my character Matthew Grace working for this woman who is obviously politically motivated, as opposed to being motivated by justice, as the current state's attorney is, at the real one. So there's conflict, there's tension, and in there he's given certain assignments that sort of reflect what's going on. And by the end of the book, there is a resolution. There is a resolution that hopefully makes everybody happy.
And what about Agents of the Abyss?
Okay, Agents of the Abyss is a series by Patrick Thomas, edited by Patrick Thomas, who also created it. And it takes all the public domain characters such as the Frankenstein monster, vampires, werewolves, Phantom of the Opera, and all this, and throws them all into one universe. And some of them are working for their respective governments. Some of them are working against their respective governments. And in talking, we decided that the first book in the story should be Frankenstein, the story of Frankenstein and his creation. And it all starts off, and it's called Monsters of the Abyss. And we wrote it because if you've ever read the story, the novel Frankenstein, it is all told from the point of view of Victor Frankenstein, who is not the most objective witness. Everything is his creation's fault. It is not his fault. There's a saying that Frankenstein is not, the monster. The Frankenstein is not the monster, but the monster is Frankenstein. And so we tell the story from Victor's point of view, from his creation's point of view, from his fiance's point of view, from his best friend's point of view, from basically the author's point of view. And a lot of it is told through journals and letters. And as I said, it gets into the topic of what makes a monster. Do you have a choice in becoming a monster? And there are several monsters in there. And in doing so, we follow Mary Shelley's novel, but we do so in a way that explains things differently than Victor Frankenstein explained. And as I said, there is a cat.
Well, that's the important part.
Yes.
So, Amy, how about you? What inspired both the series and this third story?
Well, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, I absolutely loved the show Ghost Hunters. I was totally into it. And so one night I just got to thinking, why not write a story about ghost hunters, and what do they need? Psychics. And it just kind of steamrolled from there. And my friend Tally Johnson loves to tell ghost stories, and he actually collects ghost stories and loves them. So talking to him, it all kind of rolled from there. So the first book deals with a ghost haunting an apartment building. The second one is a cursed object. So I thought, this one, why not do a portal, a ghost portal? That's kind of where it came from.
And how about our chef's kiss there, Nina?
Well, the Philippa Gale character was actually a side character in the Tilbridge Stable series. And so the way she kept showing up on the page, it just felt like she had some sort of backstory that definitely would lend itself to a book. And so I wasn't sure what that quite was until I got to the third book in the Tilbridge series, A Cowgirl Surprise Match, where she is helping plan an engagement party. And so she's prepared the food. And one of the things that she made was mini chicken pot pie. Don't ask me why, that just seemed like the thing that she should make at the time. And so everybody is raving about her food, and someone happens to mention Dominic Crawford. Chef Crawford has a show called Dinner with Dominic, and he's not only makes good food, he sounds good, and he looks good as well. And so they're raving about him, and Philippa is not. And so her best friend turns to her and does, as girlfriends often do, we like to sometimes put each other on the spot. She says, "Hey, you know him, don't you?" And Philippa's like, "Yeah, I know him. He's an okay chef, but my chicken pot pie is a lot better than his." And so from there, I just knew it was going to be a rivals type story. And so that's what I did. I gave them a background together where they were rivals for a particular job, ended up falling for each other, experienced heartbreak, and here we are 6 years later, they're finding themselves together again. So that's where it came from.
So you slipping recipes in here?
I don't know that I've slipped in recipes directly, but I've definitely put some things in there that might make people hungry as they read the book. So to compensate for that, I am putting recipes on my website. So, you can kind of dive into that while you read the book.
Okay.
I
So
want
you
to
just,
make some mini chicken pot pies now.
I know.
I know that sounds delicious.
They are.
I love chicken pot pie.
Yeah, I like it too. So I was just thrilled to just put that in there.
well, at least you're just cooking up the romance this evening. So,
Exactly. Why not?
okay, it's the best bad pun I had at the time. So let's have a little bit of fun with the research. Because, we're writers. We love to go down a rabbit hole. Whether it makes it in there or not, it's the stuff that's always floating in the back of our head. So, John, when you were going down the rabbit holes, when you were doing your research, what's the thing that you discovered that you're like, huh, or made you think, made you go deeper, that really surprised you, or is there something you just found that you really had to go into the story that you didn't plan to start with?
Okay. I didn't have to do too much research for Mortal Sins. Other than read the paper and remember what it was like on crime scenes. The thing that was most interesting about research was reading Mary Shelley's Frankenstein over and over again. There is a lot you see. You see the movies, the Frankenstein movies, and you realize the novel is nothing like that. First of all, it's not in Germany, it's in Switzerland. His name is Victor, not Henry. Parts of it take place in Italy. Some of it takes place in England and in Scotland and in Ireland. And you realize, first of all, that, when you're reading it, you realize that these stories are all coming from Victor, and doing the research, is basically what was it like in England at the time? What would Victor be doing there? He followed Newton. What was the relationship between alchemy, which was then in the decline, and actual chemistry, which was on the ascendant, and how do you balance those things? So it was learning that was interesting, and then getting them all in the book in a believable way.
Now you're making me want to go back and reread Frankenstein, because I haven't done that in probably a couple of decades.
I think I've read it enough for both of us.
Amy, how about you? What's the rabbit hole you went down? Did you have to watch one episode too many of Ghost Hunters, or did you just spend too much time with Tally? That's always a good question.
I always tend to spend too much time with Tally because his wife is my best friend. But let's see. For this particular book, there wasn't a whole lot of research. I pretty much went down the rabbit hole of trying to find what can I do with ghosts now this time. And I found the mentions of ghost portals, which are typically supposed to be a nexus where ghosts come out of, and like multiple ghosts. We don't know where they're coming out from, but they're supposed to be coming out. But I decided, what if it went in? Where would it lead? So this kind of the rabbit hole I went down, and I did have to, watch a few more episodes of Ghost Hunters and that kind of thing. So pretty much when I'm writing, I'm not plotting, so everything is kind of a surprise in that first draft.
So Nina, what about you? Was there anything you found as you went down the rabbit hole? Was it the chicken pot pie recipe? Was it?
It was a lot of that, a lot of food stuff. Had to sample a lot of things. I think probably two interesting rabbit holes I went down. One involved not so much the technical aspect of the food and beverage industry, because I do have a background in that, but just Googling outrageous things that have happened in restaurants and just looking at chat conversations of waiters and chefs talking about their experiences in restaurants and some of the things that have happened to them. So, that was a really interesting place to go, and just a fun rabbit hole to kind of fall through in terms of some of the things that have happened to people. And the other was about reality television shows in terms of what is it like for the people who participate in these shows, and how it affects their lives, and how so often they don't see how they're perceived, of course, until after the fact. And so how they perceived, how they wanted to show up on the show could be a lot different than maybe how the producers wanted them to show up on the show. So just kind of getting the details, the dirt, the gossip on all of that was really interesting.
I'm going to have two questions for you here. But so the first one is this.
Okay.
Since you were diving into the, kind of the dirty backstory from the kitchen, what was the one thing you found in your research that you looked at and said, that can't be right? That can't really?
I don't think there was anything that I said really no, because as I said, I've been in the food and beverage industry, so I've seen a few things. So nothing really surprised me in terms of what I saw. It's like, oh yeah, that's totally believable. Totally believable.
Then what's the one that you loved? The one that you just absolutely said, okay, yeah, I've lived that one.
Well, what can I talk about? I think, just how often romantic relationships happen in the kitchen in terms of these on-the-job situations, finding people maybe getting connected together in the freezer, just those little strange things that you go, oh yeah, I definitely saw that happen. And I actually had a boss at one time that said that the reason why chefs had a tendency to hook up, it was because of touching all the raw meat. It just kind of touched off something in their brain, something primal that they just forgot about all of the things that they shouldn't do, and they just dive right in.
So speaking of diving right in, what about the reality TV aspects of it? Because we all know reality TV is, yeah. So what was the thing about doing your research on reality TV then that really pulled you and you went? Because, much like working with an editor, depending on how you edit the story is going to determine how everything comes off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the part that stood out to me the most in listening to some of these stories where maybe they found themselves in the position of the bad guy. And so as a result, once they were off the show, people looked at them as the bad guy. And maybe, they couldn't separate what was happening on the reality television show from the actual person that they were meeting. And just the filming schedule as well, because when we're watching it on television, we'll see it for, that hour or whatever it may be. But in reality, they're on the set for maybe 12, 16 hours trying to get that right. And so where we're seeing judges eating, in our mind, hot food, that food may have been sitting there for maybe 20, 30 minutes and it's not hot anymore, but yet, they're still going through that judging process. So just putting it into perspective in terms of what we see when we're watching the show versus what's actually happening for everyone behind the scenes.
What about you, Ceresia? When you were going down the cosplay rabbit hole, what was it that you found, discovered?
The most amazing thing to me was how these creators take these sheets of foam and turn them into armor. Just that whole process it just seems like magical and miraculous to me, but I know that it's a long, hard process, and there's so many things that can go wrong in those steps, each of those steps, that kind of raises the stakes with each level they get to. So being able to see that and see some of the things that they've gone through to create their costumes, that definitely helped me create some of the tension that my characters are going through as they're doing their cosplay builds for this last round. So, and that kind of, not only does that up their tension, because they're being filmed while they're doing it too. So, they kind of have to stop so they can get a better angle. The producer wants to see something else. They have to explain things as they're doing the stuff that they need to do in this time limit. So all of their frustrations are kind of bubbling up in this. And plus there's that another aspect is that they were trying to label Kenya as the angry Black woman stereotype for the show, to ramp up the drama and keep people coming back week after week. And she's been trying to fight this, but at the same time, she's trying to fight that, to escape from that. She still has to focus on her work and try to get all of that done. So there's just tension coming at her from a bunch of different ways. But the whole process of what she's trying to do in the amount of time that they've given her, when that cosplayers take weeks and months to put their costumes together, I got to hand it to, like I said, I can't do that. I'm doing good if I can sew on a button. So me trying to, create one of the Iron Man costumes out of foam, yeah, that is way beyond me, but I got to give them props for that because it's just amazing to me. It's miraculous. I think it's magic.
See, now you got a challenge. You got to learn.
Yeah.
So, in the stories, it's always the story and the conflict, but it always boils down to who are the characters? Do they grab us? Do we love their story? Do we love who they are? Do we hate who they are? How do they play? So, Amy, out of the story, who is your favorite character? Why? What is it about them that you really want your readers to fall in love with?
Ooh, this particular book or the whole series?
Your choice, dealer's choice.
Oh my gosh. Oh, can't pick a favorite. It's like my children. Okay.
Exactly. This is why I'm the evil moderator.
Well, each book focuses on a different member of the team. So I guess my favorite is gotta be the first one, which is Tristan. Tristan, my reluctant psychic, can see the past, and it's very sexy looking. And I think he's my favorite because he's just kind of thrown into this world with like no preparation. And his story is the first book, and he and McKenna find each other. And with this book, though, I think I actually really started liking Tabitha, because when I started developing Tabitha, she was just kind of a background character. She started growing a little bit more, and then when I got to her book, I realized she herself kind of feels like she's nothing special, that there's nothing that she can do, and that's not entirely true. So I like how Tabitha grows in this book and realizes that she does contribute a whole lot.
So what about you, Nina? Because obviously this was a character that came as a secondary character from the other series. So obviously,
well, with Philippa, particularly in this story, because one of the themes that it deals with, or a few of the themes that it deals with, is ambition. What that, the sacrifices as well as the benefits of ambition, success, and how that may look differently from person to person in terms of what success is. And so with Philippa, watching her grow through this story in terms of her character arc and in terms of where she started, kind of wide-eyed, not quite sure what she wanted when she was in her early 20s, to where she is now in this story, being able to find that balance between career and a personal life, and what's important to her about career and ambition, and being able to define that in a way that makes her stronger. So I just really loved going on that journey with her, and it mirrors Dominic's story as well. So it was just fun to watch them grow as a couple, as well as, as we have to do, we have to make them suffer, we have to make them feel some pain. So, watching them go through their black moment and go through their pain, but come out on the other end stronger, was just fun to write.
What about you, Cericia?
My favorite characters are the hero and heroine, Kenya and Cam, and their friendship. I really liked how their friendship kind of just grew organically, and you can kind of see it on the page, how comfortable they are with each other and how they love and respect each other as friends, and then how that deepens. They bonded on the first day of high school over comic books, then games, and it just kind of grew from and turned into cosplay. So it just kind of grew from there. So seeing their journey from that whole journey from best friends to being lovers was just I just really enjoyed, because they surprised me too. Some of the things that they have done for each other over the course of their friendship, that didn't realize it was because they loved each other at that kind of level. So I just really enjoyed that. Kenya's best friend also surprised me in this book, because in her scene, she basically chews the scenery. Even though I had not planned on her having any kind of story offshoot from this one, the way that she supports her friend was just really awesome. And her own personal story in the book, I just really love that. It just kind of came out of nowhere. So basically, the characters talked to me and was telling me this is how their story is. I'm like, oh, okay, I really like that. We're going to put that in. So those are my characters that I love.
What about you, John?
Well, in Mortal Sins, obviously the main character, Matthew Grace, is the one I like the most of all my series characters. Matthew is the closest to me, because he started out in Past Sins as a crime scene investigator, and that's what I did for 40 years. Of the two books, my favorite character is the one who eventually is called Adam Frankenstein, the creature who is brought to life and then rejected by his creator, and his journey into becoming a person, wondering, do I have a soul? Am I born to be a monster? Can I choose not to be a monster? And comparing that to his creator, who he calls his father, Victor Frankenstein, who starts off with every good intention. What he seeks to do is help humanity. Why do we have to die? Can I keep people from dying? And then his slow descent into becoming somebody who could be one of the monsters in the book, and the comparison between those two: one who was born a monster and who was seeking humanity, and the other one who was born human and who is basically devolving into a monster.
So I'm going to throw a fun one out here just to see who wants to go with this one. What's the one idea you had for the book that didn't make it in and you really wish had?
Actually, to tell the truth, I had one idea about a secondary character, and had I put it in there, it would have led to a complete book about this particular character. And I wish I could have done it, but the demands of the story would not let me do it. It's like, no, as fun as it would have been, that is not the goal for this person. He's just going to go off into fictional limbo.
Y'all are not killing enough of your darlings.
Oh, I didn't say I didn't kill him. But remember, this is Frankenstein.
So as we're kind of getting towards wrapping up, but it's also holiday season. So I want everybody to, what's the one thing you're looking forward to this year? Especially hopefully this year is a bit better than last year was. What's the one thing everybody's kind of looking forward to with this holiday season?
Seeing
I can
more
go
people.
first.
Oh,
Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
We are finally empty nesters, so we are having no one over for the holidays. And I am so excited that I don't have to cook. We're going to go to Fogo de Chao for Thanksgiving, and it's going to be fun to go there, eat all the meat I want, then come home and pass out and not have to do any dishes.
you could have
perfect.
You could be having chicken pot pie,
right?
Exactly.
If somebody will make it for me, I will eat it.
What about you, John?
Okay. Seeing a bunch of people in person rather than through the medium of Zoom and things like that. And also every year I've been going to the Ocean City Comic Con in Ocean City, Maryland, second Saturday in December. For obvious reasons, there was no Ocean City Comic Con last year, so I am looking forward to going back to that and celebrating Christmas with, a form of Christmas with the people I know there, including all the cosplayers. I don't cosplay myself, but I really enjoy the costumes.
What about you, Nina?
Well, this is the first year that my husband and I are really in the same place at the same time. Because for the past few years, we've been in 2 different states and we would only get a few days together for Christmas. So we really couldn't unpack everything. So I am really looking forward to unpacking every single Christmas decoration, every single light, every single everything. So he's prepared because we're going to put it all out this year. All of it.
He's not prepared. Really, he's not. But this gives him a good excuse to go buy all the new toys you can get to really play with lights and stuff now.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And tell him to call me. We'll get you like one of the big Arduino driven lights in the front yard. And
sounds like a plan. I like it.
What about you, Amy?
I'm looking forward to seeing my nephews, which I haven't got to see for obvious reasons. And I'm hoping that my friends and I can all get together for New Year's Eve like we've been doing since 2002. So last year was the only year we've skipped. So I'm hoping we can get together this year. That would be great.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and hanging out with us this evening. We've continued to stack up your to be read pile. So it's time to add some more to it. But before we get out of here, I want everybody to let everybody know where we can find you and where they can find the books, social media, how they can, connect and do all that kind of fun stuff. So we're going to run in backwards order because, well, I can. So Amy, you're up first.
Ooh. You can find me at amyravenel.com. I've got the first chapters of my 3 books up there if you want to sample and see if you want to try them. You can also find me on Facebook at Amy Ravenel and at my group, Amy Ravenel's Library. And I poke around on Twitter every once in a while under Amy Ravenel, but not a whole lot. And I'm on Instagram too, also.
What about you, Ceresia?
Basically, if you can spell my name, you can find me. So I am on Twitter at Ceresia. Facebook is author Ceresia Glass, and Instagram is at Ceresia Glass, and my website is ceresiaglass.com.
What about you, John?
Hey, I'm on Facebook as John French. I have an author's page, John L. French. My Amazon page, if you search for John L. French, put it in quotes, otherwise you're going to wind up with French literature and books in French. I don't have a web page, but you can, if you're interested, you can email me at jfrenchfam@aol.com.
And Nina.
You can find me at ninacrespo.com. And if you go there, you'll see all of my social media spaces. My favorite place to be is Instagram. I'm at Nina Crespo Writes there. And at the moment on Mondays, I'm sharing recipes. So if you like Monday recipes and you want to try to maybe pick up something new, check me out on Instagram and also on Facebook. I also have an excerpt reveal coming on the 19th, so definitely connect with me there and read an excerpt of A Chef's Kiss, which releases on December 28th. And you can also find me on the first and third Wednesday of the month talking about books with two of my friends on Inside the Romance Buzz.
And I've had the pleasure of being your host this evening. I'm Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, authoressentialsworkshops.com, and of course here at ConTinual, and I occasionally show up in that hive of scum and villainy that is Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever else. But thanks everybody, and we'll be seeing you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.